Hello, this is Mr. Rasmussen with lesson 95 for Algebra 2. And on this we're looking at nonlinear systems. So as you graph these are not straight lines, but we don't have to graph them today. Our instructions are to solve. And so we'll be using mathematics to be able to get the answers for our x and y coordinates. Okay, looking at the first one here, this one will graph a straight line because we got no squares or anything there. However, this one here will graph something called a hyperbola. So a little extra information for you there. Alright, to solve this, let's rearrange this second equation first, and we'll get x is equal to 4 divided by y. And then we're going to substitute that into our first equation there. So we get 6, put that in there, 4 over y minus y is equal to 5. Alright, we multiply across the top, we get 24y minus y equals 5. We got to remove this denominator here, so we'll do so by multiplying each term by y. They cancel here, and we'll get 24 minus y squared equals 5y. Then we're going to move this over and rearrange so that we can solve. So we'll put the negative y squared first, move this over, negative 5y plus 24 equals 0. Let's divide everything by a negative 1, so all the signs flip to get that first term to be positive. So then it looks like this, and then we're going to factor. Y times y. This is a negative, so one has to be a negative, one has to be a positive. You probably haven't done factoring into trinomials into binomials for a while, but I'll have to go back and review that a little bit if you need to. Alright, so 24, the two numbers multiplied need to equal negative 24, but when we add them it needs to be a plus 5. And so in this case, do 8 and 3, multiply them together, get that, add them together, get our plus 5 equal to 0. And so then we can split those. Y minus 3 is equal to 0. Add 3 to both sides, y is equal to 3. And y plus 8 is equal to 0. Same thing, y is going to be equal to a negative 8. Flip. Okay, so I've got two sets, the beginnings to two sets of answers. I got my negative 3y. Now I need to find my x values. So pretty straightforward to just plug them back into my initial equation there. So x times 3 equals 4. Divide both sides by 3. So in this one here, my x value is 4 over 3 and my y value is 3. So there's one set of answers. And then my second set of answers, plug in a negative 8. So x times a negative 8 equals 4. So divide both sides by a negative 8. Looks like x is going to be negative 2. So negative 2 comma negative 8 is my second set of coordinates. Alright, I'm looking at there and it's telling me that my answer here is a little different. 1 second, I gotta check this. Oh, yeah, some math's wrong there. Okay, I don't divide 4 by negative 8 and get negative 2. I divide 4 by negative 8 and get negative 1/2. There we go. That's the problem I was seeing there. Alright, 4 divided by negative 8, negative 1/2. I was doing the other way around, 8 divided by 4. Okay, let's look at the second one here. Second one is going to be done a little differently. You can see it's set up really well for elimination. And so as we add these, we get 3x squared. The y's cancel, and that's going to be equal to 3. Divide both sides by 3. We get x squared is equal to 1. And then we're going to use square root of both sides. Remember, plus or minus. If we do that, then plus or minus, because negative 1 and a positive, or negative square root of 1 and a positive square root of 1 both work in that situation. So my two x values, x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1. Got my two x values to start. Let's put those down here. Let's do square root of 1, comma, and then negative square root of 1, and get my answers started down here as coordinate pairs. Put the parentheses there, show coordinate pairs. Okay, now I'm going to take this and I'll plug it back into, I'm going to go with my first equation here. I'm going to substitute it in there. So I have square root of 1 squared plus 9 squared, or y squared, equals 9. Now, whether this is negative or positive, it's always going to equal 1, and so we're actually going to just do the problem one time. Whether it's a negative square root of 1 squared or a positive square root of 1 squared, they're both going to end up 1. The square root and the square just cancel each other out. So my problem now looks like this. Subtract 1 from both sides. Y squared is equal to 8. And square root. So it looks like y is equal to plus or minus square root of 8. Square root of 8 can be 2 times 2 times 2, right? So we can pull these ones out. So it's actually y is equal to plus or minus 2 to the square root of 2, further simplified. And since that's the answer for whether a negative or a positive, then that is my value for both of these here. Okay, and there's my answer to example 2, my coordinate pair for 1, my 2 coordinate pairs for the answer. All right, go ahead and try both of those in the practice problems, and then come back and check your work with my work. Let's work through practice problem A. All right, practice problem A, once again, we're going to rearrange our second equation. X is going to be equal to 7 over y, and substitute it in. So 3 times 7 over y minus y equals 4. That's 21y minus y equals 4. We're going to multiply each term by y, be able to cancel a denominator. So then 21 minus y squared equals 4y. We are going to rearrange. Let's see here. I'm going to bring the 4y over, and I'm going to divide by a negative 1. So we're going to get y squared. I'm going to bring this over, which means it's going to be a negative. Then I'm going to divide by a negative 1, so it makes it a positive y, and divide by the negative 1, so negative 21 equals 0. Did a couple things there, but hopefully that made sense. All right, then I'm going to factor this, y and a y. This is a negative, so 1 has to be a negative, 1 has to be a positive. 3 and 7. This needs to be positive here, so my 7, my largest number, is going to be positive, and 3. All right, so that's going to give me a y value. Start my answer down here. This y value, right, add 3 to both, we're going to get positive 3. This y value is going to be a negative 7. Okay, let's plug those back in, see what we get. And put my negative 3 in for y. So I get x times negative 3 equals 7. Divide both sides by a negative 3. Looks like for this one here, I get a negative 7 over 3 as my x value for my 1. All right, and then plug my 7 in. If I put my 7 in here and divide both sides by 7, x is equal to 1 for that one. All right, so there's my two answers for practice problem A. All right, let's look at practice problem B. Once again, set up nicely for elimination. Add the first two, we get 4x squared. Add these, those cancel, and it's equal to 8. All right, divide both sides by 4. X squared is equal to 2. Square root, plus or minus. Those ones cancel. Looks like x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 2. So let's start my answers down here. Have square root of 2, comma, and then negative square root of 2, comma, start my answers. Coordinate pairs, I keep forgetting to put it in the parentheses. Okay, so let's substitute it back in. Use my first equation there, and so x squared, we're going to get square root of 2 squared. Remember, whether it's positive or negative, once it gets squared again and they cancel each other out, doesn't change anything, so we're going to get 2. So 2 plus y squared equals 10. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides, cancel there. Y is equal to 8 square root both sides, plus or minus, because both can be answers. So y is equal to plus or minus 8. That can be simplified in 2 times 2 times 2. Pull 2's out, so plus or minus 2 the square root of 2. And since that's the answer, regardless of whether we have a positive or negative in front of our square root to start with, we're going to put that in there. Plus or minus 2 square root of 2. Plus or minus 2 square root of 2. And double check to make sure that is correct with my answer key here. And that is, we've got it. Okay, I see one problem. I see some problems up here. Let's go back to, I should have checked that. All right, let's come back up to here. All right, I've got my 3, and put my 3 in here. Oh, this is connected by multiplication, and I'll put in a negative 3. I was supposed to be in a positive 3. This right here is supposed to be a positive 3, and therefore we're dividing by a positive 3. Therefore, this one here is supposed to be positive 7 over 3. And then this one over here, when I put in my value, I'm actually putting in negative 7. So put in negative 7, I'm actually dividing by a negative 7, which makes this a negative 1. There we go. All right, had to correct those. Didn't check that, should have checked that. Okay, so I think I got mixed up here and looking at the wrong numbers there. All right, so practice problem A now has the correct answers. We'll see if you watch the whole video and catch that. All right, hope that goes well for you. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions, and have a great day.